My mom and sister spent years trying to push me back into my ex's arms, but I married someone else, and now we're expecting a baby. When I was 16, I started seeing my best friend. Together until I graduated from high school, he proposed and I turned him down. My family asked me to rethink as we may have a lengthy engagement or pledge to reunite, and there was much turmoil with them. For a while, my relationship with my 36-year-old brother weakened. The one with my sister, who is 32, never recovered. She got intolerable when she started dating my ex's brother as she was confident my ex was the ideal fit for me. My siblings invited my ex everywhere, including several family holidays, but I said nothing since he was their friend as well. That is until my sister started advocating for our reunion. No matter the circumstance, my sister tried everything from try to arrange for us to share a room during holidays to setting us on blind dates. One invited my ex to it. I had enough after a time and urged my parents to step in. They stopped inviting my ex to events or letting him tag along so much and were upfront with my siblings. It was only marginally better, but while my brother withdrew, my sister did not. It all came crashing when I ran across my husband on a semester abroad. We simply clicked even though he attended another university but from a different nation. For me, it was fantastic. We started dating a year ago. Except for my sister, my family was really glad for me. She persisted in saying I would grow out of the honeymoon phase. I obviously didn't, and I would quit talking to her if she pulled anything else after many, many battles and tried to get me back with my ex. After that caution, what does she do? She appoints one of her friends as my husband's date, asks me to spend all my time with the bridal party, aka my ex, and makes me her maid of honor. The poor girl tried to pass at my husband, and we didn't know until we were at the reception. Since we are not married, my sister stated it was acceptable to explore things with others. I left the celebration, and the next day I chatted with my brother and parents. I said that although I won't force them to make decisions, I will not interact with my sister ever again and will cut off all communication with them should they try to mend things between us. While my dad and brother indicated they would support my choice, my mom was distraught and sought to compromise. Apart from 2 tries from my mother, over 6 years I haven't spoken, written, or anything with my sister. From gifts to tantrums, my sister has tried everything to mend with me, but I hardly interact with her at all. If we're at a family dinner or gathering, I just pretend she doesn't exist. She tried to generate drama or made snide remarks at first, but she gave up when nobody supported her. She would not be involved in any planning even though she did have a meltdown upon learning she was invited to my wedding. According to my brother, his relationship with my ex has worsened subsequently and he feels bad for continuing along for so long. Though they are not as close now, they still talk. The problem? I finally said we are having our first child. My mom's birthday was several weeks ago. Though my first granddaughter, this is not the first grandchild. Except my sister, everyone was really delighted. My mother observed that and asked me for tea one other day. Though my sixth sense warned me not to attend, I wanted to be optimistic. When I arrived, my sister's automobile caught my first attention. Then there was my sister, her husband, my ex, and his lunch as I walked in the door. Since my childish approach has lasted for so long, they wanted to intervene. My ex said he was merely trying to be romantic, but he realizes I wouldn't value it. His mother apologized already. I should forgive her since I was only hurting his sister for wanting the best for me. I was just texting my dad, brother, hubby, and looking at my mom incredulously. My brother-in-law had the guts to tell me I was a nasty person and I should learn how to act like an adult since I am now pregnant. My mother then started reading a letter about how hurt her daughters weren't close, how my sister was wrong but she was well-intentioned, etc. My sister then read her letter, started to cry and told me essentially another form of what the others did. I sat there until my brother showed up. I said nothing to anybody. Beyond anything I have ever seen, he was furious. He took my items and informed them all he was truly disgusted and disappointed. We left and remained in his car until my dad and husband showed up. By then I was just crying and he kept apologizing. I'm not sure what occurred there, but I emailed everyone except mom, including my lawyer's contact details attached, and said I never want to be bothered by any of them ever again. Should they, I will report it to the police. Nobody has got in touch, but my dad told me from experience that my mother and sister are hysterical. They assured him they hope to fix things and for my sister to be in my baby's life, maybe even acting as a godmother. Right now my dad is living with my brother. While some family members don't, others help me. Since my sister is now following the narrative that my husband is keeping me away from my family, I have even had mutual acquaintances phone me concerned about her well-being and asking me what happened. Although I detest having my business open to the public, I did follow the public path and shared a lengthy Facebook post about everything that happened. Though it wasn't exactly planned, I believe my sister, brother-in-law, and ex are deserving of dragging. Now my mother has been inconsolable, which makes me uncomfortable, but not as horrible as she made me feel with her little intervention. A few days ago, I agreed to meet with her and set the ground rules for any future contact, including therapy, family therapy, explicit boundaries, no sharing of information about me with my sister, and separate holidays. Above all, she will definitely be cut off should she ever do anything similar once more. She is ready to do it even though she feels this is excessive. She believed it meant instant access to baby news and that it was all fixed, but I explained to her it is a process and she has to show she has changed. My dad and brother continuously apologizing for not halting their refusal to interact with my sister earlier. Since they were able to go on and flourish, we have forgiven them. Though my MIL is dubious if cutting my mom's access to her grandchild is the best course of action, my husband supports whatever I decide upon. She feels it is finally my choice. About what to do with my mom, I'm conflicted. Commenter. What is their rationale now that you are expecting? Should you quit acting out make-believe with your husband and come to see your happily ever after resides with your ex? Regarding your child, what? Will your ex and his family welcome her? Oop. Although my sister says she is not trying to bring us together anymore, I cannot take away her opportunity to be an aunt. She stated I'm a poor sister since I spend so much time with my fantastic sisters-in-law. Of course, I disagree with her. My problem is knowing what to do with mom. Commenter. She wouldn't be your best friend without you dating your ex. OOP stands for, though I wish I could tell you, I have no idea her mental process is. My spouse believes she is simply psychologically sick. The ex, he still owns the mixtapes and CDs I created for us while we were dating, which is the most ludicrous and terrifying thing. He still finds great value in those objects, which are roughly 20 years old. Commenter. I'm kind of amazed your stalker ex, and yes, I will call him that, is still in your brother's life. Said another way, hold strong with your mother. No deadlines, she must prove she can follow your guidelines. Your sister has to live with the results of her deeds. OOP. To be fair to my brother, he did start to cut him off when I informed my parents I was somewhat uncomfortable with my ex always there. I lived away for college but would see my family on breaks. He also worked very hard to make my husband welcome, which degraded his relationship with my ex even more since he felt betrayed by my brother. My husband is one of my brother's closest friends nowadays. He only talks to my ex about our nephew or to avoid being nasty. Commenter. You have to understand that your mother is endorsing all of this. She knows your mom also believes it's appropriate. Therefore a major reason Big Sis is ongoing this. This makes me somewhat depressed since my mother was always so friendly to my husband and now I'm questioning their whole relationship. For some background, neither Indian nor from a religious family are we. My parents were decent, polite ones. At first, they considered it to be a romantic thing, but subsequently came to see it wasn't. They pushed me to start college and all around. Now, I know my dad really helped me and my mom might have just followed along and had the same ideas as my sister. My sister suggested that we would be best friends with the brothers. Update 1, same day, 16 hours later. The modification I wanted to post but couldn't. I want to thank you for the so far great support and guidance. Since there are too many for me to personally address, I would like to add a bit more information in my remarks. I broke up with my ex when I was 18. He is 47 today. Our separation sprang from my unwillingness to be engaged or married. The fixation of my sister on wanting both of us to be best friends and brides drives her insistence. Although my mother has always been rather kind to my husband, I am starting to believe it was all a show, which makes me rather depressed. Although he has 2 children with an ex and has been with other people since the separation, my ex has never been married. Given he has only ever wanted to marry me, my sister feels that is a really romantic thing to do. I should also emphasize that his compulsive actions go beyond myself. From the grapevine, I know he was quite similar with his children's mother. Now he is focusing on me since my sister is supporting it since she wants his help in returning me to my good graces so she can be a good aunt. When I informed my parents I was somewhat uncomfortable with my ex always there, my brother did start to cut him off. I lived away for college but would see my family on breaks. He also made a very great effort to make my husband welcome, which degraded his relationship with my ex even more since he felt deceived by my brother. My husband is now among the closest friends of one of my brothers. He only talks to my ex over our nephew, the son of my sister, or to avoid being nasty. Although I suppose only my dad was in agreement, both of my parents seemed to be encouraging of my not wanting to be around my ex so much. We would enjoy quality time together, Thus my mom told my dad she was making my preferred tea and cookies on the day of the tea party, but he could remain. Thinking it would be a great sentiment from my mom, my dad left to hang with my uncle. Right now he is really irate. When they met, my husband tried very hard with my sister. Now he simply dismisses her and thinks she is mentally sick. Though we don't know whether she is or not, her behavior cannot justify anything. Their official perspective is that it would be best for me to confront the core of my problems with my sister, hence they invited the ex and his mother. Furthermore, my spouse and I are from the same race. We are not really religious, neither Indian. Neither my ex nor my spouse have any financial differences. If such exists, it would benefit my husband. Finally, the circumstances infuriate my sisters-in-law, both the wife of my brother and the sisters of my spouse. My husband's sisters and he will be discussing her comment with their mother. My brother and his wife are debating permanently cutting off all communication with my mother. They would let her visit my nephews for a while in between either. The more I read, the more I believe I might have to go no contact with my mother for the benefit of my child. Thinking all their interactions were phony breaks my spouse, and he becomes even more angry that she made me doubt I was a nice person. Although I know my family still has a lot of talks to go concerning my mother, I will surely be getting a restraining order against my sister and the ex. Here is the appropriate semi-update on the current situation of my family. My mother said she knew better even after we spoke. She claimed I am a nasty person and that she will be obtaining either custody or rights pertaining to grandparents. Though I am nothing like what she describes, I still panicked, so we wrote her a letter about it. Moving permanently, my dad informed her he could stand by her terrorizing his child. Also choosing to go no contact are my brother and his wife. Though I understand it appears somewhat abrupt, I believe I understated the degree of hopelessness I experienced following the intervention. Later on, my husband advised them to consider very carefully what they valued and to be friendly and open to everything but would not raise a child in a poisonous environment. Reason 3,271,637. I love my hubby for this. My mother and her fakeness really break my hubby. She will never get anything from him, he says, which is as much retribution he wants. My MAL was informed about her comment by my husband and sisters, who also helped her to see why it was rather out of line. She is, as many of you would guess, a very devoted mother from a lovely family. My dad and brother keep atoning for any part they contributed to this. It astounds my dad that we have reached this position. For him, he claims, everything is still strange. Still, they claim they are ready to assist me in battling any foolish struggle my mother or sister might muster and back me no matter what. Update 2. I would like to thank you for the nice words and encouragement. I chose to publish it here so it wouldn't be removed as the original was. Though they are both wonderful and terrible at the same time, I am trying to keep upbeat about everything. Sitting my nephews down, my brother and his wife told them Grandma was sick and tried to hurt Auntie Diamond and the tiny cousin. Grandma might not be living with them anymore, they said, but that does not mean she loves them less. Though the kids are smart, it was really difficult. Although Auntie is no longer in their life, they do not care as they hate her, not because of me alone, but rather because she is not exactly great with them either. When she was told, my mother lost it and began asserting she had rights and she would be able to visit her grandkids. Mostly because of my brother's MIL coming to visit, my dad is looking for a permanent apartment but will stay with us until January. We have the space. He is quite depressed. He has contacted divorce attorneys, moved bank records, etc. already. My mother has been sending him innumerable emails, messages and calls, but he responds to nothing. He was advised not to block her right now by the lawyer. He thought about maybe forgiving her, but a few days after my last post here I had a significant increase in blood pressure since she chose to visit my house with his sister. Though my mom knew I didn't want her there and my sister had never visited my house, I suppose that doesn't matter now. Knowing my mom, the cleaning girl let them in. I haven't had time to let her know she was not allowed to enter anymore. I observed the automobile, while I was returning from some errands. I skipped this time as well. I phoned every relative, and my husband's sister, was the one closest by. She challenged them and warned them either they left or I would call the cops on them for trespassing. They went and I started to feel ill. When we visited the doctor, they advised me that all the excitement was not good and that I should start unwinding or else the baby would suffer. Along with my brother, uncle, and husband, my dad headed home carrying every single item he could have thought of. According to my husband, my sister was also present and kept yelling at him that he wrecked her family. My dad told my mother and sister they nearly killed the infant and he also wants not to interact with any of them once more. Though it is not happening, my sister kept messaging my brother begging for aid. Since his mother has some crazy beliefs, My nephew is losing so much of his family. Hence, I am devastated and somewhat sad for him, but it is what it is. Regarding the custody and grandparent rights my mother wishes to exercise so much, my attorney wrote her a letter declaring she harmed the kid and my health and declaring, should she continue to harass me, it will become official legal business. Using her harassing of me as justification, my brother also sent her a letter. My mother and sister have both turned down attending treatment. Although they may be mentally sick, given all of this comes to light, it is clear they have long-standing agreement. Spending holidays with my family, maintaining health, and attending therapy will be my main priorities. Update 3. Hi, I figured it would be a good fit as I had some time and had several requests for an update. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for your comments, letters, and every piece of advice since we owe you for making us even more cautious than we were. A few asked me what process we utilized to find the baby's gender. After 20 weeks, I announced it. We wanted to be sure and feel comfortable about the announcement, hence we waited so long because we had experienced a loss in the past and we were ready to share it. We were also stupid enough to believe it would be especially meaningful for my mother. I sent it to my husband after publishing, and he spent a few days reading your comments, mails and advice. We cleaned the house and fortunately discovered nothing, but we still felt somewhat vulnerable and so visited a motel with my dad. Then we discovered a tracker on the vest of my fur baby. He has a humorous vest since he is a pretty small dog and gets cold a lot. I never would have considered checking there, but we found the tracker when my dad took him around the hotel grounds. My sister approached him about me and reconciliation. We moved since I was somewhat offended. We are fortunately able to afford it. Not merely empty, we are renting our former house as well as right now. That house used to be my favorite, but today I feel it's destroyed and contaminated in some sort. Sadly, not just me but also my brother, spouse, dad, and even the family of my husband feels the same about their residence. We changed our numbers, acquired new devices, and let friends, companies, and the police know. We began family and therapeutic sessions as well. Nevertheless, I have really forgiven my dad and brother, they still feel great shame about the circumstances. We are healing as a family nevertheless. Mom and sister argue they don't need therapy and they are not wrong. My dad created a new will whereby my sister's son receives a trust fund and some inheritance but my sister receives a nominal sum. He really is done with her. Though I felt awful for her, I resolved to concentrate on my baby. She is here, we are blessed. Since my mother is no longer with me, this is not the experience I considered. Yet many friends and relatives have really surprised us. Eventually, we were so worried that we began testing some people we knew nothing about by telling them I was about to go into labor. It worked like magic. We cut off those who were still providing information to my mother and sister. When we clarified the thinking, the rest made sense. We have been having a torrid affair because of my undying love for the baby, thus my ex, who my friends now call Bates, went around stating the baby was his. Nobody believes him now, but it caused my husband to call Bates's company and inform him of all the madness. Long story short, Bates was suspended while internal review was under progress. Given their requests for more and more information and their seeming contrition, I nearly guarantee he will be let go. My mother has searched for us, but none of the people who know of our whereabouts have contacted her either. Her dad's attorney wrote her a letter saying that since she is unstable, all letters will now go via attorneys. Just my dad and myself since I felt so horrible for him being by himself. I still feel terrible even though he has assured me he will be all right and that nothing is my fault. In the world, he has been the best diaper changer, feeder, and babysitter. As usual, my nephews are loving. My dad even visited the son of my sister. She started creating films threatening to injure herself if my husband stopped isolating her from the family, thus this came about. She seems to have stopped it when my dad emailed her regarding visiting her son and advised her he would call the police about her threats. Finally someone mentioned that I gave Bates false hope. That cannot be more far from reality. I spent years uncomfortable since I assumed he would move on. After I spoke out and saw my husband, I spent a lot of time berating my sister over it. I married after my sister as I had a very long engagement. Though I still love my mother and sister, I put a good life for my family and me over that affection. Over this entire process, I have come across a great deal of compassion, love and loyalty. Strange as it sounds, I feel happy that all of this exploded. Hopefully, it is not too tangy. Many hugs from me. Update 4. My dad moved into the guest house when we formally settled into a new house. We concluded that although it would be great for him to be with us, we all still need our space after many conversations, in and outside of therapy. We will be choosing what to do with the previous place later. We are still renting it now. About 3 times a week now, My dad has grandchildren all gathered around. She refuses to allow him to have the child until she knows where he lives, which, to be fair, is a typical thing. But considering she is insane, we do not want her around. He still needs to see my sister's child separately. Mom objected to the lawyers about how unjust it is. Though little she can do about it, my dad still gets to visit every grandchild. My dad informed me he had a confession around a month ago, and dear reader, my stomach started hurting. She still lets him see me since he pays for my nephew's, sister's child, tuition and babysitting. Not wanting to keep secrets, he felt so bad for hiding it. I told him to relax and that there was nothing wrong with it. My dad received an email on Mother's Day with a link to an Instagram account with a somber video on my mother and how most of her family has deserted her, as well as how much of a saint my sister is for being there for her. Though I just forwarded it to the attorney, it was truly pitiful and infuriated me. Dad formally asked for divorce in May, and the procedure is still underway. I believe that's final, as my dad said he would sooner drink bleach than go back to her, and my mom insists he is mistaken. My dad was given Father's Day by my brother and husband, who had a great time. That day, my sister uploaded a lot of items, but we wanted Dad to enjoy the day, hence we blocked him from ever knowing about it. They also went to a hotel, got a suite, and set up a tent in the middle area for the kids and a little tippy for the infant on a camping trip with them. To be honest, one of the finest things I've ever done is have a baby. Witnessing my husband be the wonderful father I knew would make me very happy. Though it is demanding, we have a lot of help. I have my rocks at my side, thus I am thankful beyond everything. My sisters-in-law and I now have a little calendar for sharing age-appropriate activities for the children. If they so want, we let them know they do not need to hang out with individuals they dislike and that their voices count. We have tiny get-togethers, brunches, etc. Right now, they are all fixated on the infant and claim to be her defenders. To be honest, without my sister present, family time is now a delight rather than a chore. She simply saps the enthusiasm from the room. I know it's awful to say. Along with staying in the guest room roughly once a week, my meal enjoys spending time with the baby. She replied gently that she wanted nothing from the infant for sleepovers or anything. She respects and listens to me, and sure, I have broken down occasionally as I miss my mom a lot. I miss the mother I had, or believed I had, not the one who informed me I would be a nasty woman or awful mother. According to my therapist, it's a marathon and to keep the positive first. About good, Bates was let go. Not only that, but his industry's reputation suffered nuclear-level harm as well. So was his brother's, but he still has his job as far as I know, since Bill is not in an industry that gives reputation much thought. About his hurt, how I'm denying him what is his, and how my husband is so intimidated by him that he had to go and professionally destroy him since he cannot ruin anything else, Bates sent me a 12-page, double-sided, single-spaced letter. I say seems as my lawyer reviewed it and sent me a synopsis. I did not read it. The grapevine also told me, no, I don't ask anyone, they just tell me since they know he is stalking me, that the mother of his children relocated and he didn't even care and stated it was for the best. This man wants to play family with the baby and me and hardly gives his children any thought. Mommy already let him move back in with her, hence sadly he won't be homeless or anything. I doubt he will learn anything from this. Not the most flashy update, but rather just what is. Oh, and with my dad's okay, my spouse burnt or donated every single item my mom or parents handed him. Even with memories, he believes, life is too short to allow her room in his life. Commenter. I am rather happy you are visiting all that with the intact good portions of your family. I appreciate Bates as a nasty guy, but has he ever done anything relevant or connected to his work? I truly don't see the firing component. OOP. It's a really close-knit one. And when you have a bad reputation, it shocks you. He is not giving up his business. Before this, he was considered as a good but detached feminist single dad. He even informed certain colleagues that I stayed with him for more than our scheduled visit. Commenter. OOP, I have respect and am sorry for what you faced. I am reading your entire story from the best of Reddit from my house in India at 1:30 a.m. As healthy and pleasant as you both are, I hope your child develops to be as well. Also, I hope this whole mess ends soon so you may be back with your mother following the end of her XF dream. Respect you, keep fighting. OOP. That's a great attitude, but I will never chat to my mom once more. I miss her a lot. I shed a lot of tears. The baby deserves the greatest family we can offer, and my mother is not part of it. She is not the person I thought she was. Though I have to safeguard the baby, it hurts. New update. Long time, no saw. Though first I want to thank you for all of your comments and letters. I have some updates for you. I value it greatly as every time I log into this account I am inundated with essentially wonderful stuff. Nobody will probably read this, but for those that want updates, they are mostly decent. Let's get right on with that out of the way. Now, following several arguments and outbursts from my mother, my parents are divorced. That is it, kept the house and received a lump payment. We are all quite thrilled for my dad, who seems like a new man. A little flashback. We didn't terminate our cleaning lady during all the hoopla. This woman had been serving my husband's family for decades, and her absence from work due to what her insane relatives did caused great anxiety in me. We are not slobs either, and she is not kneeling or anything like that polishing floors. In any case, my dad told her she was on paid vacation till we moved into a new house and to kindly wait for us should she wish. She was not fired at all. Her family was likewise really delighted about it. Because they were so appreciative of what he was doing for them, my dad occasionally started gathering food and goods from them. Well, my dad is currently seeing her. Her sister runs her own nail business. She is a really beautiful woman who has grown children, hence she can relate to the dynamics occurring occasionally. She is happy with him as he has been quite clear that he is neither moving or getting married. She values her independence. When her mother learned about his new relationship, she almost passed out. She kept claiming it was a late midlife crisis and he had to turn to be a sugar dad. I obviously heard this since I don't interact with her, but last I heard she is struggling. She depends on my dad and struggles as she was never adept in budgeting. She had to stop making insane purchases. My dad is not assisting my sister with money anymore, hence she is also suffering. You see, he was ready to stay on helping for my nephew's benefit, but then things became very difficult. Starting to nickname my child an affair baby, my nephew said she is not with her own father. Saying they were only he, not my kids' cousins, he pushed one of my nephews on my husband's side during a birthday party, calling my other nephews delusional. The children were bewildered and thus very confused, but they told an adult right away. Dad spoke with him, but he kept repeating it. When he spoke with my sister, she claimed she had no way to stop a child from speaking the truth and that not all children always do. He is severing them, he informs her till something changes. She sobbed and fretted, but she also was really tenacious. My nephew attends public school now since my spouse forced my dad to cut them off. Bates, well, he is still without work. I know I was vague about it, but some of it had to do with stalking, irony much, and he worked in a field connected to vulnerable women. He was therefore sacked for this. The company he worked for didn't want this all over them. He has sent 2 more very long, handwritten, rambling letters. As he only has my lawyer's address, guess who has the honor of reading, compiling and submitting those rams? My lawyer is a champ, I love him. Apart from that and the rumors, I have not had any negative experiences involving him except one. A random woman approached me at the grocery shop to find out whether my child was Bates's baby. I was startled and froze. She stated he had a picture of us on his page when I asked her what she was on, and I should feel bad for hurting such a decent man. Turns out he is still following the story that my child is his and that I loved him so greatly. That is all old news. The picture comment really startled me the most. There is nothing public or like that about this picture. That is it. It was emailed once to a family group. I told my husband right away, and he got furious but under control. We made the decision to smoke the rat. To cut a long tale short, my dad's 2 sisters were providing information to my mother. Though he was somewhat let down, my dad had no questions about cutting them off. They still implore him to meet with them once more. His family and mine are doing fantastic. We have seen them frequently and have spent some family holidays since the last update. They also hardly interact with my sister and mother. Since it turns out she was not a fan of our mom but preserved the peace, my SIL is actually quite glad about it. Also quite beautiful are my in-laws. She is over the moon about us allowing male overnight babysitting now. Her grandchildren are all happy to be with her. Sometimes she has all of them under one roof. She used to be a flight attendant, hence their preferred game is to act like an airline. We don't worry as they love her generally and we know she is nice with our children. My mother kept stalking her, so she had to make her socials private. She prepared her own bed, hence I am sure she is quite jealous. Last but not least, my hubby keeps me sane even in small matters. We wonder whether we ought to adopt another baby or even have one. We still have to decide, but we have a tremendous support network and the advantage to have these talks. I still long greatly for my mother. When I know there are milestones I can no longer enjoy with her, I occasionally cry. Yet, she is a bad person. Thus the safety of my family comes first. Last interesting tidbit. They went camping last Father's Day. It was excellent save from some poorly placed sunburns and bug bites. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. We couldn't save our 15-year marriage, because my wife friend-zoned me and wants a platonic companionship. My wife, 35F, and I, 35M, have been married for 15 years and we've been together for 20 years. We have 2 kids, 12, 14. We absolutely adore and work tirelessly to provide the best possible life for them. For the past 3 years, things have been somewhat bumpy. I understand that our kids are at an age where they require a ton of our attention and resources with school, band, club sports, and other extracurriculars, and I'm aware of the physical and emotional toll that can have on marriages. However, for these past 3 years, my wife and I have had very little intimacy and very little sex, and we've been trying very hard to work on that aspect of our relationship. This past year has been the most difficult and by far the darkest year in our marriage. We didn't talk very much. We essentially became roommates co-parenting our kids under the same roof. It was very depressing and very demoralizing. It was to the point where we began contemplating divorce, and it became very dark and gloomy in the household because of that. We began seeking help with both individualized therapy and couples therapy, and it seems to have helped some. Little by little we started to get along and started to have deeper conversations about what our marriage looks like and what we would love for it to look like. This is where it gets tough. As time passed, my wife started to tell me she no longer was in love with me, and that she only saw me as a best friend. That she only loved me in a very platonic way, and this was one of the main reasons she didn't have any desire for intimacy and let alone sex. This was very shocking to me, and quite frankly, I was devastated. I became angry and depressed, and I couldn't fathom the thought that I was no longer wanted or desired by the person I felt completely in love with. Things began to deteriorate again, and not long after, we were back to square one. I sat down with her one afternoon and had a heart-to-heart and began to ask questions about where the root of this problem lies, and her answer was I don't know, and that, I have built up resentment towards you but I don't know where it stems from. As you can imagine, this provides very little to no insight into how to approach this. I'm puzzled, I'm frustrated, and I do not know what to do at this point. Currently, we've arrived at a place where she says that she has no sex drive and no desire for intimacy or connection. She says that all she wants is simply companionship, which basically means our co-parenting roommate dynamic. I asked her what I could possibly do, or what is it about me that is so unattractive or undesirable, and her response is always I don't know. She stated that she does love me but it's not the same. That she has been feeling disconnected for years and that our marriage just takes up too much work. Her focus is only the children for now, and that my co-parenting contributions are meaningful to her in our home. I'm at a loss, and I'm mainly venting about my frustration. It's tough to realize that the person you love has no feelings for you. I feel like at this point I'm only here to contribute financially and as a parent. I feel like what she means with companionship is that she's comfortable with the convenience of having a good father for our kids and my financial contribution to the household. In regard to intimacy and/or sex, she basically told me that it's not something she's interested in, or wants at this time. She mentioned that the only way to get to a point for any of that is to be intoxicated, which is incredibly awful and very wrong. I told her I do not think forcing herself to have sex or be intimate by drinking or smoking is good, and I declined to be a part of that, which to my surprise, it upset her and made her more distant. We're both extremely honest and transparent. We've never cheated on each other, and we are always free to look through each other's phones, emails, socials, etc. And we hardly ever do. I asked her if there was someone else and she declined. Honestly, I believe her. We then peacefully went through each other's things, and as expected it was clean. We've always been very forward, even with the hard topics, so I don't smell or feel any foul play or infidelity. Am I wrong for declining to only be intimate or have sex when she's intoxicated? I'm firm on my stance of not partaking in this only when I'm high or drunk sex because it doesn't sit well with me. I do not know how to help our situation, and I'm starting to become a bit anxious and desperate. We're both fairly young and healthy individuals and good looking. We both have good standing careers and are good parents. I'm just not sure how our lives could have driven us to this point. I'd love some outside perspective on this matter and some insight on how to address something like this. It feels so awful to be unwanted and undesired by my own spouse. I hate it. My wife of 15 plus years is no longer in love with me and doesn't know why, and now says she can only have sex while intoxicated, or I need to settle for a platonic sexless marriage, and she doesn't know why that is, but it is what it is, and I'm in need of insight or advice. Relevant comments, missing reasons. Commenters looked at his history and found they were swingers. We did some swinging in the past. That was fun for some time. We mutually decided to stop doing it, and we have established it's not the case. When we were swinging, however, our marriage seemed to be in a good place. This is something we did disclose with our couple therapist and made sure to include it to make sure we're not neglecting an obvious potential issue. I will say, I did ask my wife if what she experienced during swinging is something that is affecting her view on our relationship, and she said it wasn't. Our swinging experience was always together and it was very sex-driven. Nothing really emotional or poly. Truth is, I have to believe her at her word. I have no reason to distrust her. To date, she's always been very forward and never afraid of dealing things head on. No matter how painful. If this is a consequence of swinging, this issue existed long before the lifestyle. I agree that swinging wasn't a solution in the end. Never was meant to be. It was more of discovering or exploring if she felt any different. If that was the case, we agreed we would talk about it, and if we arrive at the conclusion that myself is the problem and she has no problem with other men, we would part ways amicably. However, this wasn't the case. She didn't like sex or intimacy there either. She was very much in control of that whole swinging situation. And yes, I went along with it. What gives? It felt very organic, and it was her effort, if you will, to discover more and learn more about our current issue. I saw it as a means of learning if I'm the problem and was very much ready to accept that. It turns out it wasn't the case. 6 years of misery sound awful. I would very much hate that. OP on if this started when the swinging ended. Finally, a comment on the swinging topic with actual insight. You're absolutely right about the fact that the swinging experience had changes that will impact our marriage and lives forever. For example, the best thing swinging taught us, even above sexual exploration, was the level of transparent and open communication it requires. We would literally have mental orgasms having dialogue with such intentionality. We implemented that in all our lives and areas, including parenting with our children. She even agrees that we're thankful for that takeaway from our swinging. Honestly, I cannot stress it enough with people here. Yes, we explored swinging. However, it was actually a positive experience. When we decided to stop, it was because it felt natural and organic to just do so. In fact, we met with that couple who we meshed super well with the night before. We actually enjoyed the actual friendship and even spent time as vanilla friends. So it wasn't because of something negative. Wife mentioned that it certainly wasn't any better, and since she's not enjoying the sex, we both agreed there's no point to this. I agreed, and we moved on, and we're still friends with those people because it's great. All that said, I know, more often than not, swinging causes massive issues. However, this was something we explored in pursuit of a solution to an issue that was present way before. I think of it as taking a practical approach to trying to solve the problem. Update 1. I wanted to give you guys an update of how the therapy session with my wife went this week. Not sure if this is helpful or not, but I took many of the responses, comments, suggestions from my initial post and put together some things I wanted to discuss with our couples therapist to help us navigate some of the core issues that may be affecting this situation. One of the main things that is the buzzword of this has been the term resentment, and it has been really eating me up inside knowing my wife keeps telling me she doesn't know why she's resentful or doesn't know why this is affecting her emotionally, mentally. I brought this up with our therapist once again and resurfaced the conversation about being married for so long, 15 years, and being together since we were 14 years old. Our long history of growing up and how having children when she was 19 years old, me 20, significantly changed the trajectory of our lives. We experienced severe poverty and many hardships in the process, and we essentially had zero social life for the past 10 years because we were so busy raising babies, 2 kids now ages 12 and 14. She followed up with tons of questions directly, mostly from my wife about her feelings towards this, and 90% of the responses were very our kids focused. It definitely felt like she was afraid of saying yes it sucked, because she would feel guilt or shame because it would imply she regrets the kids. I mentioned this in the session, and the therapist encouraged her to look at this outside of the lens of being a mother and to try to view it a bit more selfishly and individually, and it was very eye-opening. My wife mentioned that she was very frustrated with the fact that we did miss out on many things in life. She also was very clear in saying, I do not think I missed out on other partners or dating or partying, but I certainly lost all my friends. This was huge because one of the big pieces that has caused a strain in our lives is how siloed and isolated we've been, again busy raising kids. I followed up by reminding her that it's important to have good friends and to make time for herself and her friendships. For the past 3+ years, we've had multiple conversations about friends and how it is important to have them in life. Especially when you have similar peers that can help in many areas of life that perhaps we have no experience navigating, and even simply for enjoyment. It has always been something my wife avoids. Even though she's always been someone who needs that external stimuli. The main reason for her not investing in friends or even herself has always been the kids. Like I mentioned earlier in this post, 90% of the answers have to relate to the kids to some degree. At this point in our session, I started to feel like there was a common denominator, the kids, in most of the frustrations and problems she was experiencing. So I simply asked her, "Do you think you may be upset at me because I'm responsible for these kids in the sense that I got you pregnant so young?" I wasn't ready, but she said that she was upset at me for that. She also followed up with the fact that she knows that's unreasonable because it takes two to tango. I did feel like it was progress because it kind of gave us something to work on and help alleviate some of these burdens, so we agreed to invest more time in nurturing good friendships both together and individually. Towards the end of the session, we began to discuss what actionable items we would take from this session. At this point, it was still all very ambiguous and blurry as to what the outcomes were. I was very direct and very forward in asking my wife what her plan is moving forward. Note, I had decided prior to the session that should my wife say the same thing about being a co-parenting roommate, that I would take the 180 approach and essentially do me. She started basically saying the same thing, that she doesn't have any desire to be intimate or sexual with me as of now, and that she loves me immensely and she feels bad for not being there for me, as mentioned in my first post. I also brought up the brief swinging that happened, to which for the 50th time said it wasn't a problem. I agree with her on this. This was something that was a mechanical approach for a solution to a problem that was very much in existence when we tried this. We, both, really have no issue with this. We know it happened, we tried it and mutually stopped and turned the page. I also brought up other life events that may cause resentment, and really we ended up not getting anywhere else as far as the root for resentment, which was discouraging. I then basically expressed to my wife that I will not be okay with that arrangement. I told her that I've really done everything I can and that this issue really has reached a point where it has nothing to do with me or requires me to do anything that I'm currently not doing. I was very direct and said that I will not be accepting this dynamic and that I need to be with someone who is actively involved in our marriage, works towards resolutions, and is very much interested in maintaining an active intimacy and sexual relationship. I expressed how I'm not going to be a convenience, and that there was more to life than being roommates and co-parents. I made sure she knows I love her dearly and that I do want this to work for the better. I also told her that I'm fully committed to this marriage so long as she is as well, and that if she wasn't, it's okay. However, I will not be a part of something where these efforts are not reciprocated. I told her I have no plans of leaving, and I do not want a divorce. However, I made it clear that if this dynamic continues, that divorce will be the only outcome. Of course, tears were involved and it was a very bleak and sad ending to the session. Still nothing was said, and I walked out very discouraged and very determined to start working on the 180 as soon as we left the room. It's painful and very difficult because much of the 180 requires you to be very short and cold and transactional. The saddest part is realizing, this dynamic already is very cold and transactional. Here's where it gets very interesting. I started working on implementing many of the 180 recommendations that same day. I mentioned to my wife that, hey, things are going to be a bit different moving forward. I'm going to honor her roommate co-parent dynamic without reproach, and that it should be no mistake that I'm not happy here and I am never going to be okay with it, but I am done working on it if she wasn't going to work on it. She agreed and went to bed. I started to build distance and started to basically focus on myself. Very short and transactional. She asked for help on some of her personal things, to which I declined, and it really shocked her. She was upset, saying I was being petulant. I explained to her that she is now fully in charge of her own life and her own issues. We didn't talk all day and we only spoke when necessary. Few days I keep this going and she's very visibly upset and stressed. I typically react to that with gestures of help or nurturing, but I didn't this time. That night she was crying, telling me she's stressed and she thinks something is wrong with me because I'm indifferent. I simply listened, then I told her that this is the dynamic she proposed and that I'm simply, much like her, taking care of myself and focusing on myself. I'm not going to lie. It has been very hard to be cold and distant because, as I mentioned before, I love her and I wish I could hold her and love on her. However, I know this is somewhat manipulative in a way, just to get her way and still keep me in the friend zone. So I've been staying the course. We're now going on a week of this 180 and let's just say, there has been many changes on her side. I think she is starting to realize there is more to me than just friends and co-parenting. I sent her a text a few days ago essentially itemizing bills and separating the financial responsibilities 50-50ths, and she lost her shit. She basically told me it was out of left field, to which I responded, hey, friends go in 50-50ths and as your friend I expect nothing less. This was very eye-opening because it gave me a glimpse of how I'm really taken for granted and how her level of comfort and convenience at my expense is really overlooked. I pushed through anyway and basically told her that this is the new dynamic she asked for and that it's still a bargain, because she would have to be 100% if she was on her own. I'll wrap up with this. While the 180 has been working in many different areas, I am still very much sad about the overall situation. There have been many eye-opening statements being said and realization that have not been pleasant to encounter. It has also sparked new energy and new efforts on her side as well. She's definitely seeking to talk to me more often, and while it's hard to turn down, I hope if things improve this continues to happen. I've also noticed that she's making more time for herself aside from being a mom, which is huge because she pretty much neglected herself for years. I'm very pleased seeing her be more herself. My hope is that as we work on ourselves, the marriage improves. There really is no telling at this point where this will go. We are very much cordial and amicable even to this day, and that's a very good sign. Boundaries are set and expectations are very clear, and I feel that no matter the outcome, I will be at peace with everything that has been done. We're still going to continue the couples therapist until we either rekindle our marriage or end up in divorce. I feel like having this unbiased third party really helps as a witness and as a guide through this. No matter what, I will always love my wife. However, I will not participate in a sexless, intimacy-less marriage because we both deserve better. Thank you all for all the kind words and recommendations and feedback. This will be my last post on this topic, and I wish you all the best. TLDR. My wife friend-zoned me once to just co-parent at my expense, but I started the 180 method to try and find a solution because she doesn't want to work on us, which seems to be working on getting her out of her rut and helping me discover more about how she feels. Also, therapy is paramount and highly recommended to all couples. Relevant comments. Comment 1. So, I'm going to assume that your wife has a lucrative job and you are both going 50-50ths on childcare, as you both work and share children. Because otherwise, this approach is just plain financially abusive, and if you're planning on saying I won't pay the bills unless you have sex with me, sexually abusive as well. Assuming that is the case and you aren't a total POS, I'm actually interested in how this works out for you. I feel like I'm in an unstated, similar situation. We both work and have blended finances, but we don't go to bed together or eat together, have barely any intimacy, a kiss or two, hugs every couple days, and spend maybe 8 hours a week together, just the three of us, him, me, and the toddler. Even less, just the two of us, maybe 3 hours a week. Otherwise, he is on his game, or out playing sports, watching YouTube, or whatever else he does. It barely feels like a friend situation, let alone a marriage. I'm curious how she handles it, as the spouse that presumably was pulling away first. I hope you keep us updated. OP, yes, we both have degrees, good careers, and while I make significantly more money, her salary is very proficient and above average. The 50-50ths was not to cripple nor hurt her financially, that is cruel, but mostly to send a message on what a roommate dynamic looks like in the real world. I really dislike how people immediately jump to conclusions about the finances as a way of manipulating her. It's not the case at all. Plenty of money left over after bills. However, 50-50ths means she has less whatever money, and the understanding that roommates share everything equally. Prior to this 180 approach, we did everything together and with our kids. We always saw ourselves as a unit that does things together. Both alone and with the kids too. That's changed now, where I'm choosing to focus on more independent types of pastimes and focus. That is what has sparked her reaction and realization of there's more than just roommates here. Comment 2. How does one dump half of the household expenses on the other person if they share a bank account? Or are your finances kept separately? Just curious how this would work if applied to my life. OP, excellent question. We shared everything. The proposed 50-50ths was suggesting we place the necessary amount to pay bills in the same account, and any leftover money can be deposited to a new account. I think this is why she was very upset. She felt a huge loss of control knowing she won't be able to monitor my finances. Also, she felt a huge loss in her leftover money with this arrangement and saw that I would keep significantly more of my own. This is still being worked out because I think she is calling my bluff here, but my plan is to notify her next week as I modify my direct deposit and open a new account. It will definitely be more real there. To be clear, for all the trolls here, yes, she will have less leftover money after responsibilities, and it's still enough to live on. Example, for reference. Assume I make $3,000 a month, she makes $1,000 a month. Responsibilities are $1,000 a month. So she'd contribute $500 and I would contribute $500. Where before she would contribute only $250. This is the last comment I'll add regarding money and finances. She's fine and she's not hurting. I promise. When asked what if she leaves for another man, interesting. She has no shortage of men hitting on her, and we're by no means jealous people. So I've witnessed this multiple times and her reactions are somewhat indifferent. I will say, if another man for her was the answer, she'd tell me, or she'd have some inkling maybe. There's no telling, but I think the problem is deeper than superficial attention from a different person. You might be right, and if this is the case, so be it. However, I'll live with peace knowing I left no stone left unturned. Crazy thought, I know I would be disappointed and saddened if she did leave for another man that would accept the bare minimum. But I'd also feel at peace knowing it's not all my fault. I know I'm responsible in some way to some degree. That's just marriage. I know sadness and depression will creep, but we'll both overcome. But if this does happen, at least there will be clear reasons and clarity as to why it did. Also, I know for a fact that she wouldn't cheat. We're both very blunt, open and transparent. She would definitely tell me that she wants to step out on our marriage before it actually happens. As would I. We owe ourselves this respect for each other and we actively practice it. New update. I debated for a long time on whether to submit an update on this matter. A few significant changes have taken place and I felt it would be good to not only share with you, but also to allow myself to process all of this in a uniform way. We're now almost 9 weeks in on the 180 method I mentioned I was starting, and it started to render some positive reactions from my wife. I explained in the previous post that she started to notice things that she previously took for granted, started to ask more about my whereabouts, and also started to notice I would go out with the kids more often without her, and she started to invite herself, to which I didn't decline. So much has changed, and it has changed for what seems to be for the better. This past Memorial Day weekend, my wife asked me if I wanted to go out for coffee because she wanted to talk to me about something. This was huge, because I can't recall the last time my wife asked to talk to me about something important. I must admit, I was very nervous and worried about what this could be about, and my mind was racing with the plethora of scenarios of what it could possibly be. Of course I agreed, and we took some time away from the kids to have this conversation at a local coffee shop. The talk was very constructive in nature. There was a ton of insightful information about herself that helped me further understand where she is in life, both emotionally and mentally. We summarized what the core issues we are encountering are, and she asked me for help. This is new, and I cannot tell you how excited I was to hear something so sincere coming from my wife, who for the last 2+ years has been absent. So after she was through sharing all her thoughts, I proposed a plan that I felt was right for us. This is something that I had been thinking about these last few weeks, and I was planning on bringing this up in a few months if I noticed that things were not changing for the better. This date felt like the right place to share it, since it goes hand in hand with what she talked about, and it also relates to the help she was asking me for. I started by first acknowledging her feelings and her concerns. I told her they are valid, and how she feels is personal to her, and that I care that she feels this way because I don't like the thought of her being sad or depressed. I also told her that my goal still is and will always be for us to reconcile and be the happily ever after we vowed to be for each other, and that my love for her is as strong, if not stronger, as it was the day we said I do. I continued the conversation by telling her how I felt about the whole situation. Read my previous posts for details, and how it affects me every day. I also clarified some things that she mentioned she was feeling because I have been very distant and monotone, transactional, lately. I explained to her that I was very much trying to protect my feelings and emotions from the rejection and neglect, and that it wasn't personal. It was simply me safeguarding myself because I cannot control her, I can only control myself. This was a perfect segue way to the core of this approach, which is focused on self-accountability. I told her that for the longest time I was always working hard to make her happy and do things that I knew she enjoyed or wanted. However, I was always met with rejection and disappointment, which caused a load of stress on me. I explained to her that I had to make a change for myself. After all, I can only control myself and make the changes that I want for myself. I mentioned how I was starting to implement new habits and routines that help edify me, all while still executing all of our shared responsibilities, including parenting, finances, and daily living activities. I explained that the goal is to continue to improve myself both as a husband and father, learn more, and be healthier, among other things. She was very receptive to this. She told me that she sees what I'm doing and that she is proud of the changes she has seen. She also told me how she's starting to realize that she feels left behind and that much of the things that have affected her negatively are her own fault. Toward the end of the conversation, which was about 3 hours, there was a very high spirit of reconciliation in the room. I told her that my goal is to ultimately make this work. However, I was very clear that I was not going to live under the current circumstances. I told her that my heart wants her to be happy even if it means elsewhere, and that I also deserve to be happy myself. I also explained that I do not want our children to grow up thinking this was okay or normal because they deserve better as well. She told me she doesn't either. She told me she doesn't know what to do, to which I replied, let's set some clear goals. However, the goals will be for ourselves, not for each other. So here is what we established. We are in charge of our own happiness. The key here is that she's not responsible for making me happy, and vice versa. We both need to seek what that personal plan looks like individually. Also, we're both encouraged to include each other in taking those steps if we want, but it is not required. We are in control of our own individual lives and our own journey. This means we're both responsible for finding the resources necessary to grow, change, and heal. We can definitely help one another when help is requested. However, unsolicited advice or help will not be rendered. We are responsible for communicating. This ensures nothing is left unsaid. If it was never brought up or discussed, it never happened. We're not mind readers, and we need to take ownership when we fail to communicate. Make a list of needs and wants. This gives us both clear directions about meeting each other's needs. This also gives us a choice as to what we choose to do, compromise on, or decline to do. This list also will not serve as a checklist for accountability. We made it clear we would not be bringing this list up for the purpose of arguing. And it was up to the other person to use the list as a tool for growth, transparency, or clarification. We concluded that it was up to us to decide if we will be happy doing these things for ourselves because we care, not to simply check a box. This was very important in order to establish long-term habits and not short-term band-aids, because you cannot make someone change or do something they don't believe is important. Established a deadline, Memorial Day 2025. At the end of the conversation, we concluded by setting Memorial Day 2025 as a hard stop to evaluate our lives and our progress. We agreed we would do this with the clear understanding that we will independently decide if we are happy here. If we determine we aren't happy, we will be getting a divorce. We would also both assume full responsibility for what happened should we get divorced. For example, if needs were not met, it would mean my partner chose not to meet them. This places full responsibility on each other in all areas. The whole process requires that if needs were not met, the next question should be, did we do everything to address this issue? If yes, then we will have a clear conscience of what transpired and know we left no stone unturned. If, however, we didn't do everything to address the issue, it will mean the issue was not important enough for you or didn't care to meet those needs. This goes both ways in all areas, like everything else. We established that the main motivator for change should be ourselves, and that if we did that, we would in turn begin to see beneficial changes towards each other. The goal is to ensure that everything we are doing for one another to meet each other's needs is being done because we want to do it for our spouse, not because she asked. Instead, it was done because I know it makes him/her happy and I love seeing them happy. I felt it was important to mention to her that we are no longer required to do anything for each other. It is now more of a I want to do these things for each other. Ultimately, I felt the conversation was very positive and productive. Many tears were shed and lots of hugging ensued. I know this doesn't mean or guarantee anything, however, this has never happened before and I can honestly attribute it to the 180 method. I cannot give any more insight on this method other than it's the only thing I did differently and something new happened for what seems to be better. I've decided I will conclude and will refrain from this method moving forward as the plan now has changed. I'm planning to devote myself entirely to not only myself and my growth but to also work on her needs and wants because I want her to be happy by my side. She said and agreed she would do the same for herself. We agreed we would help and build each other wherever we request for it and that we will be approaching this as a team. As of today, some of the biggest changes I have noticed are her commitment to therapy and mental health. She is taking some antidepressants that are helping her. She is also more confident and in a far better mood more frequently. We have started to explore more ways of intimacy in multiple areas such as physical touch and words of affirmation. Sex is starting to make an appearance, which is exciting. Side note, sex was very awkward to start when you've been abstinent for so long. We've also started to work out together, which is great, and have lost weight, which is also very exciting. Overall, communication has improved, and I cannot wait to see where this leads. I hope this helps someone out there. I'm still very much interested in your feedback and thoughts on this. You all have been a huge help in giving me hope and insight into this tough journey. Trolls aside, many of you have really been instrumental in my journey both emotionally and mentally. I will not be providing any more updates until Memorial Day next year. I think it's now time to keep focusing on myself and start working on all the new opportunities that hopefully will arise with my wife. I wish you all the best in life and your relationships with those you love. TLDR, our marriage took a turn for the better after the 180 method and we're now working on ourselves, each other, and rekindling our marriage. We also set a deadline for next year to either remain together or get divorced. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.